Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet, and today, a little bit about creative freedom. I periodically reflect associated with the time that I spend doing things that is creative. And it's curious actually because I don't really consider recording podcasts as part of that creativity. Although obviously this must seem very stupid to listeners. When I think of the creative freedom that I have, I think primarily associated with written word, music, and software. But really I probably should start considering these podcast recordings as well as being part of that creative freedom. When I reflect specifically that I spend between 10 to 15% of my waking time, wherever possible, in these kind of creative environments, I try to utilize as much of my time to move ideas forward, either, as I say, in software, audio, or in writing. I realize that this is something that is central to my being. But I would never call myself a creative. There seems to be this notion now, particularly in, folk who are a decade or two younger than I am, that there is this thing being a creative, where you disregard every other aspect of your life and you invest all your time and energy in your creative work. And I think this is an interesting pattern. From my perspective, it might be slightly dangerous, but if you have to fight for your ability to do something, so much the better. I think it probably focuses your mind and your energy on doing this stuff. And in that light, I'm sympathetic to this idea. However, having done creative things, having produced various work, having spent time working on these creative entities, I also reflect very strongly that probably what drives me with regards to podcasts associated with production is really important as well. You need to set deadlines for yourself. You need to find moments where you can work on things with the view that they'll only be short. They won't be dedicated for any length of time. But if you add enough of these things together, you'll end up with something that is effectively the same as if you devoted a lot of time to it in one go. It's interesting as a movement, as a youthful movement, I don't know whether these people will kind of disavow any knowledge of people such as my work, but I do reflect on the fact that fundamentally you've got to get the material out there. I have cousins that are, as I say, 2 decades younger than me. And some of them are musicians. Some of them are musicians that are actually quite well known. And I give them a lot of respect because even if it's 2 years between their album releases, they at least focus on producing music. But I have other cousins that call themselves musicians and artists but don't have the same production ethic. And in this light, it's very curious because my work clearly doesn't have the same kind of, impact or at least interest that their own works have. But quite frankly, I'm at a stage in my life where I'm happy to be a schmuck. I'll continue producing the stuff that I produce. I'll continue investing certain times in these almost self-serving fantasies where I work on various things and then release them. But at the end of the day, it's a personal preference. It's something that I thoroughly enjoy. And I'm very thankful to a number of folk who assist me in this light. And in this regard, one of my number one Short Funk listeners currently is my wife. And I couldn't put the time into these things if it weren't for her sympathy and support. So behind every guy who likes to live in some fantasy world, every girl that likes to create in this fantasy environment, it's wonderful to have a spouse and partner who is sympathetic to these kinds of whimsy. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.